Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is January 9th. The Blue Jays sign Kazuma Okamoto. The Cubs trade for Cabrera. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? The first week of the new year is in the books. We have arbitration numbers that came in. The deadline has passed. We'll be talking about that, as well as some signings and some trades. Of course, there is still plenty big names still out there available for your favorite team to sign. So will they, won't they? How long will it take? We're coming up on February, and that is really when you want to be done. Your season, really, your off season. Let's get into the news here. The Blue Jays, once again, one of the big headlining teams here so far this offseason. They continue to stay busy, stay active. They are signing Kazuma Okamoto to a 4-year, $60 million deal. Okamoto comes out of the Japanese league. He's primarily one of your kind of corner infielders, but has played some time in left field. And I specify that play time in left field for something I'll be talking about as well. Okamoto's numbers, he fits the Blue Jays profile. We talked about the Jays and the 2025 Jays specifically, what they were able to do with, contact first, with some power, having the defense, like this new school of baseball. I say new school, but that's how baseball was, and we got away from that for a few years with the three true outcomes of strikeout, walk, home run. We're getting back in, or it seems like teams are trying to obviously what's what I'm looking for here? Kind of like use what the Blue Jays did last year, use their formula, and try to invent that into their teams. This is what the Blue Jays have been doing the last couple seasons. It worked so well last year, and Okamoto fits the bill. You look at his numbers, his batting average, 322 last year with a 992 OPS. He picked up 15 home runs, but just 2 years ago, he had 41 home runs. So he's a guy that will hit for contact, but has that power element still with him in his at-bat there. Across 11 seasons, he has 277 homers and an 856 OPS in his time in the Japanese league. Here he's picked up 872 RBIs, a batting average of 274 across over 1,300 games in those 11 seasons. And yeah, Okamoto fits exactly the Blue Jays dynamics and the way they've been playing baseball. The biggest question, I guess you could say, with the Okamoto signing is, what does this mean for Bo Bichette? For the longest time, the Blue Jays, we were hearing that they were in on Bichette and Kyle Tucker, and it kind of made sense with the way their team was laid out right now, with Barger being able to play third base or right field. If you were to sign Kyle Tucker, then obviously Tucker would play right. Barger then gets moved to third, where Ernie takes over at second. Or you sign Bichette. Bichette would take over either second or short with Jimenez. Ernie would stay at third, and Barger becomes your everyday right fielder. What Kazuma Okamoto does is kind of throw a wrench into the plan. Right now, as is listed on Fangraphs, Ernie has moved from third to second, and Okamoto has slotted into that third base side. Like I said, he also plays first, but Vladdy's a gold glove first baseman. He's not going to be moving to DH anytime soon, especially with George Springer, who is still on the team and is in the DH role as it stands right now. If they were... I'm not saying they're out of Bichette, but with every sign that's happened, first with the Dylan Cease, you bring in Cody Ponce, Tyler Rogers, every signing that's happened, you get a little bit of less and less likely. They could still go out and get a Bo Bichette, Kyle Tucker. That is completely on the table. But you end up in a position where you have a really great starting nine. The more you keep adding, the more you're taking away from some of these players. If you bring in Tucker, okay, both Tucker and Barger are left-handed hitters, so when you face a righty, does Barger then go play third? And does that mean Ernie comes out? Like, Ernie led the postseason in hits. Like, is he a bench platoon guy we're talking about here? Santander, the reason why it kind of worked last year is because Santander spent so much time on the IL. He was the big signing for the Jays last offseason. And he had no role in the 2025 Blue Jays. He could be a coin flip of either like, wow, this is the Santander that's like his best year came in his free agent walk year. We ended up signing him to a big contract, and now we're stuck with him. Or he's gonna light up the league and have 40 homers. Like that's the Santander that was missing from this Blue Jays team. But you already have Kirk behind the dish. Vladdy's at first. You have Ernie at second. Jimenez at short. Okamoto at third. Santander, Varsho, Barger, and then Springer. That's your starting nine. And it's like, okay, great. If you bring in a Bichette or Tucker, who comes out of that starting nine, right? Like on the everyday average lineup. Obviously, the Blue Jays, they do a lot of platooning. They'll move around for matchups and everything. But, like, that's still at-bats from really great ball players. So, the Okamoto signing, I think it's good. I think it will work out. 4 years, $60 million. I think I like the length. I love the value of that because when you look at his stats across the MVP, you're getting a guy who, as I mentioned, will have 277 homers, but he'll also have, bunch of hits each year and work way across that. 2024, he had 150 hits with 27 home runs. A 280 batting average with a slug over 500, you will take that any day of the year. And for $60 million, that is phenomenal stuff. Obviously, anytime any player from Korea or Japanese or whenever they come over, I always put a grain of salt on it just in case, because you never know how they will adjust to the American lifestyle living in North America, whether it's Canada or the United States, and how the Major League Baseball, how it affects their game, because obviously it is different, and even more so as a hitter than a pitcher. But from what we've seen, across everything, World Baseball Classic, he was a name that I didn't really not think of much, but I didn't really remember from the World Baseball Classic a few years ago because there were so many other notable names that I learned about, like Murakami and Roki Sasaki, etc. But he was out there and he was playing, he was balling. So I like the signing for Toronto. I think it helps them out a lot. But it is almost like a bittersweet signing because, like I said, to me, it almost rules out Bichette. Tucker, I feel like, is still more on the table for the Blue Jays, just because Springer is a free agent at the end of this year, and that's a big, bat that you want to. If you can replace this year, then you can already do that, and then you don't have to worry with Springer next year. Depending on how good Springer plays, maybe you want to keep him around for following years. Like, it really depends. It's a big year for Springer coming up. I mean, he's going to be 37, so where does he stand there? But yeah, I feel like that infield is now cluttered with Vladdy and Jimenez and Ernie. And that's the thing, right? With Santander, let's say he has an injury, let's say he's not playing great, you want to throw him there. You almost are in a situation where it's like maybe you can move someone from the infield to the outfield. And I'm not talking about Barger already, but like Ernie Clement is a super utility player. And obviously his skill set, I feel like, is more for the infield, more for a second or third base. But have him go out and take some reps in left field. I'm sure we'll see that in spring training. I'm assuming with Kazuma, you might even see him in left field, which is why I mentioned that when I said that's what he played. Like, yeah, typically he is a corner infielder, specifically at third base, but he has played in left field. So why not go out there and, give him some reps in left field and see how that works, right? So there are some answers if the Blue Jays still want to pursue Bo Bichette. It just depends how badly they want that, how badly Bo wants it. Like, we don't really know where Bo's standing in all this. There's some rumors coming out about Bichette, as there's been all off season, but yeah, it might be the end of the Blue Jays Bo Bichette era with this signing. But again, until he signs officially with the Blue Jays or another team, it's all still up in the air, speculation, hoping, praying, etc. Moving on here, let's get into a big trade that happened a couple days ago. The Chicago Cubs, they are taking a swing for Edward Cabrera from the Miami Marlins. Edward Cabrera, I would say, is one of the more talented players in the league when it comes to his arm. I mean, his stuff, when he's right, is on Cy Young level at times. I mean, his best starts are absolutely insane. And part of the problem with Cabrera, and when you look at his numbers, I mean, he plays for the Miami Marlins. So, I mean, it's a tough team in a tough division that's going to get roughed up no matter who you are, unless you're, of course, Sandy Alcantara a couple years ago. I mean, that guy was legit. But yeah, outside of being on the Marlins and having your off days, he's also dealt with a lot of injuries. But every year, you're kind of feeling more and more confident. Across his 5-year career with Miami in 2021, when he debuted, he is 7.1 WAR. He's 25-29 with a 4.07 ERA in 89 starts, or 89 games, I should say. He's made 87 starts, 2 starts out of the bullpen that came in 2023. In 431 innings, he has 478 strikeouts, giving up just 59 home runs, 195 earned runs. So that's across his career. When you look at his game log, and he debuted in 2021, middle of the season, no one was thinking much of it. It was 7-game stint, whatever. The following year, which was arguably his best year, he went 6-4 with a 3.01 ERA. He made 14 starts that year. The following year, he made 20 starts in 22 games. That was 2023, where he had two bullpen appearances. And then 2024, he had another 20 games, 20 starts, right? So that is what his MO has been. It's been increasing in games, but not a guy who's gone out and got you 30 starts, right? Last year, that was his best year in terms of, overall appearances. He had 26 starts last year, 3.53, his second best ERA, his most WAR at 2.8. His wins was the first time that he had, or second time he had more wins than losses, 8 wins, 7 losses. It was the first time of his career where he pitched over 100 innings. He has 137 innings and 2/3 last year. His next highest was 2023, where he was 1 out away from 100. He had 99 and 2/3 of an inning there. So one more out, and he would have been 100 innings pitched in 2023. But last year was his first. So again, the upside is truly there when it comes to Cabrera. You just kind of hoping that last year was like the start of him figuring out the longevity of a season. If he needs to get over, 150 innings, right, for the Cubs to really make back some of that value, which I haven't even got to that part of this yet. The Cubs paid a pretty penny, I gotta say. I love the return that Miami got here, including Edgardo De Leon, Christian Hernandez, which was the Cubs' number 11 prospect, but most importantly, the Marlins also picked up Owen Caissie as the big headliner, their number 1 overall prospect. And if you're thinking Owen Caissie, that name sounds familiar, well, it's because he did get a little bit of taste of the big leagues this season. He came up late, just got into 12 games where he picked up 5 hits, did get a double, and his first major league home run. 4 runs, 4 RBIs, 192 batting average, a 568 OPS. It really means nothing overall. Because it is just a first little stint in the majors. It's only 12 games. He only had 27 plate appearances. So, it really is nothing. You're going to go into next year. I would assume the way the Marlins team will probably end up looking come 2026, like come the start of the season. I would assume Owen Caissie will be on the everyday lineup already, leading, part of the Jacob Marcy, Xavier Edwards, Kyle Stowers. Like the Marlins have slowly put together a nice little team with a bunch of like names to know. I mean, like I think all of the names on the Miami Marlins roster here, according to Fangraphs, that starting nine: Jacob Marcy, Xavier Edwards, Kyle Stowers, Augustine Ramirez, Griffin Conine, Otto Lopez. You slot in Owen Caissie, Connor Norby, and Graham Pauley. I mean, these are all, little names here. Javier Senhoja, Christopher Morel, a couple names on the bench there. Who knows what you can get out of Sandy Alcantara? Hopefully a big bounce back season for him. Yuri Perez is the 2 there, maybe the 1 eventually, whatever. Then you get some young kids there in Max Meyer and Braxton Garrett. They signed Pete Fairbanks. The Marlins, they're going to be scrappy. They kind of were last year already, but I feel like even with them moving on from Cabrera by bringing in Owen Caissie, they're still going to be a ball club and like one that you're like, okay, well, yeah, on paper they shouldn't make the postseason, but papers don't always translate to actual seasons. Like, a couple things go wrong for the Phillies and Braves, let's say, maybe the Mets even too. Miami could find themselves in the mix for a potential division if all these players, fire on all cylinders and everything's looking good. Like the Marlins finished 79 and 83 last year. And so far, yeah, they lost Cabrera. They didn't have any free agents last year, so they didn't lose. The only player they've lost so far is Edward Cabrera. They bring in Morel. They've brought in Caissie. They've brought in Fairbanks. You go and make another. I'm not saying go get a mega splash player. Go get like a Tucker Bichette or Bregman. Go and get like a Chris Bassett for the rotation. Zach Gallen even maybe have a little reunion there. Like there definitely are. Some options there for the Marlins to make like a mini splash here. And then this team that won 79 games, 1 win off of 80, they can definitely be in the mix for an 80-win season, and who knows how much further that can go and that can take them. For the Cubs aspect of it, I mean, yeah, you're getting a player who there's plenty of upside to. I think with them siding away from Owen Caissie, they have Ian Happ, they have Pete Crow Armstrong, they have Seiya Suzuki. You make a really nice, lineup there for the Cubs and a really strong outfield, which is where Owen Caissie plays. You kind of have this like backup, if you would. However, and I say this however very strongly, the rotation for the Cubs with Boyd, Horton, Emanga, and Tyone. Now you throw in Edward Cabrera. That's your 5. That is a strong 5 for this year. Who knows when Justin Steele will be back? He had his UCL surgery pretty early in the season. He was one of the first major pitchers to go down with a season-ending injury last year, back in April. So he should, if all things, go correct for him and all things go well, he should be back, late April, early May, realistically. The thing that does worry me for the Cubs is that the clock for anything with this team kind of feels like it's already at its max. I just had a look at their payroll structure. I will tell you the list of free agents for the Cubs. Shota Imanaga, Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, Jamison Tyone, Nico Horner, Hunter Harvey, Hobby Milner. Like there's quite a few players coming off the Cubs books next year. The only big name left is Dansby Swanson. Of course, free agent is still happening. You could expect the Cubs to make a big move here depending on where they want to go. Because, yeah, like Matt Shaw, the third baseman they picked up last year, like he's young. He's got a fresh, set of service time. Same thing with Moises Ballestarios. He's going to be, a player for the Cubs that they want to keep around and hopefully, the way he played last year. Pete Crow Armstrong, same thing. Michael Bush, same thing. So there's definitely some players here for the Cubs that kind of work out. in their favor. I kind of went on a tangent here that I don't know where I'm trying to wrap things up with this. Overall, I would say for Miami, I like it a lot. Yes, you're parting ways with Edward Cabrera, and yes, that is a big name for the Marlins and a big, pitcher and arm at his best. But you have Sandy, you have Yuri Perez, you have Max Meyer. Like there are other starters there. What you do with Owen Caissie is definitely shore up a lineup that is like a player or two away from being surprisingly can be competitive. Like I'm gonna put some stock in the Miami Marlins this year. I really think with this team on paper, the way they played last year, especially at the end of the season, if they started the season just 5 games better, 5 more wins than losses at that point, like they would have been a real threat in the wild card. Could they make much noise in the postseason? Probably not, the way that the Dodgers were able to handle things. But this is a fun team. So for Miami's aspect, I do like it a lot. For the Cubs aspect, it's interesting. The lineup doesn't change much without Owen Caissie. You lose out on a prospect or two here at the top of the order here. But there's still notable names in the organization, guys like Kevin Alcantara, who I think is now their number one prospect with Owen Caissie leaving, if I was going to assume anything. They still have a nice bullpen that has been, worked on really well, bringing in Hobby Milner, bringing in Phil Maton and Jacob Webb, having Daniel Palencia at the back end there, Caleb Thalbar. So there's names here that are nice for the Cubs, and now you bring in Edward Cabrera, which really does shore up the rotation. I mean, Boyd, Cabrera, Horton, Emenaga, Tejon, and then once you get Steele back, like that is a really strong rotation for the Cubs, who mixed with a really nice lineup, will be a threat in the NL Central once again. For me, the only thing is last year they had Kyle Tucker, and yes, despite a midsummer slump that he went on after the All-Star break, he was producing crazy numbers, especially at the beginning of the year. That's a lot of production that still hasn't been replaced. I mean, you look at that lineup right now, Kyle Tucker gone, nothing else has really changed with it. So does that mean you win more games or lose more games? Right now, I would say lose. But again, there's still plenty of free agents, including Kyle Tucker. So who knows what will happen there with the Cubs and the Marlins. But this is a very fun trade and one that will be very fun to look back on in a couple of years. Moving on here, let's get into the last signing that happened, which was the Rockies signing Michael Lorenzen to a 1-year, $8 million deal with a club option for 2027. Now, this Michael Lorenzen, you might think, well, what are you doing on Colorado? Because the Rockies are the Rockies, and pitching in Coors is really difficult. And I would agree with you. I'm not sure exactly what this move is for him on his career and his pathway. For the Rockies, I mean, you'll take anyone who wants to sign with your team at this point. You guys got to really turn things around at some point. Lorenzen, a one-time All-Star in 2023, he's definitely turned his career around really since becoming an everyday starter, which happened after he left Cincinnati. His entire career with the Reds was used out of the bullpen, really. Besides his first year in 2015 at the age of 23, he had 27 games, 21 starts. From that point on, he only made 5 more starts with the Reds, but played in over 290 games with the Reds at that point. But then he signed with the Angels in 2022 as a starter for the first time in his life. He made 18 starts, or the first time in his life, but the first time he knew he was going to be a starter. There was no back and forth with the bullpen. He had a 4.24 ERA with the Angels, which is surprisingly good because it's the Angels, right? From that point on, he then signed a deal with the Tigers. And that year in 2023 is where Michael Lorenzen, the starter, really made his name. In 18 starts with Detroit, he had a 3.58 ERA, and this was on a Tigers team that wasn't doing that well. He had a 5-7 record, but he was pitching really well. He made his first and so far only ever All-Star appearance. The Tigers then traded him to Philly, who were in a, end of season push for the division, trying to wrap that up and win that. And with that pressure and that change from going from the AL Central Tigers to the NL East Phillies, his numbers really dropped hard. He ended up finishing with a 5.51 ERA in his time with the Phillies across 11 games, a 4-2 record, so it was a winning record, but definitely struggled a little bit more and did go back to the bullpen towards the end of that season there. He then signed with Texas in 2024, continued to make a name for himself as a starter, a 3.81 ERA in 19 games, 18 of which were starts. He then was traded at the deadline to the Royals, where he was fantastic in 2024 after that deadline. A 1.57 ERA across 7 games, 6 of which were starts. Only gave up 5 earned runs in nearly 29 innings with the Royals and went 2-0 for them to help them make the wild card at the end of 2024. He stayed with them last year, and definitely across a full season, you saw more of the ups and downs that he's had throughout his career. A 4.64 ERA, 27 games, 26 of which were starts. So again, he's been getting he's 1 to 2 every bullpen appearances every season, but has primarily been a starter. He will be a starter with the Rockies. 141 innings. He gave up 73 earned runs, 127 strikeouts, a 7-11 record. So yeah, what you're going to get from Lorenzen this year, if you're Colorado, you're going to get a guy who will go out, he'll probably make, 25 upwards to 28, 29 starts for the Rockies. He'll probably finish with an ERA around 4.3, nothing crazy. He'll get you some wins. But yeah, it's a signing. It fills a hole. It kind of helps with the Rockies, trajectory, if you will. And for Lorenzen, you get a place to call home for 2026. It's going to be his 7th team of his career. He's going on to year 12, I believe, with a age 34 season. So good for Lorenzen to have a new team here. He's going to end up with the Rockies for the 2026 season. Right now, let's continue on here. We don't have any more signings or news to talk about. What we do have, though, is the arbitration updates. I mentioned this at the beginning of the episode. The deadline for arbitration filings has come and gone, and what we have is, as usual, many players and teams met and agreed upon their 2026 salaries. Some received little extensions, which we knew about going into the arbitration. Guys like Tyler Soderstrom from the A's, Miguel Garcia from the Royals, etc. What we did end up with, though, is 18 players who were not able to come to terms with their teams, and these 18 players all look like to be heading to arbitration. Of course, deals can still be made with players and teams, so they can still settle before arbitration comes around. I always think arbitration is definitely scary in terms of, how a player will feel about their team, entering 2026, especially guys who are in their final years of arbitration to second to last. Depending on how that goes, it could really leave a tear and drive players away from teams, right? So I'll read through these really quickly. We'll talk about 1 or 2 of them in depth here. So first off, we have Reed Detmers from the Angels. He has filed in at $2.925 million, while the Angels have filed in at $2.625 million. So it's $300K that's between them there. Isaac Paredes from the Astros. He filed in at $9.95, nearly $10 mil, while the Astros went at $8.75. So you've got about 1.2 mil difference there. I should have done the differences, ahead of time before, and I'm trying to do mental math here. Yanier Diaz from the Astros, he fouled in at 4.5, while the team fouls in at 3 mil. So it's a 1.5 difference there for the Astros and Diaz. Eric Lauer and the Blue Jays. Lauer at 5.75, while the Blue Jays are at 4.4, so that's 1.35-ish. Difference there. Dylan Lee from the Braves, he'll file in at 2.2, while the Braves file in at 2, so that's a 200K difference there. William Contreras, I would say, is one of, if not the second biggest name from this list here. He's filing in at 9.9 with the Brewers, while the Brewers are at 8.75, so you're about 1.24 difference there. Calvin Fosher from the Marlins. I gotta be honest, this is a name I'm not too familiar with, but he's filed in at 2.05 million, while the team is at 1.8, so you're about 200K off there. Bryce Miller from the Mariners, he'll file in at 2.625, while the Mariners, are at 2.25, so you're about 380 off there, 380K. Cade Cavalli from the Nationals, he's going to file in at 900K, while the Nationals are firing at 825K, so a 1.75 difference there. Keegan Aiken, sorry, not even 1.75, just a $75,000 difference between the two there. Keegan Aiken from the Orioles, he files in at 3.375, while the team files in at 2.975, so about 300K there between them as well. Kyle Bradish from the Orioles, he files in at 3.55, while the team files in at 2.875. So you've got about a 700K difference there between Bradish and the O's. Edwin Ucita from the Rays, he's at a 1.525 million, while the team is at 1.2, so about a 325,000, not 325,000, 325,000 difference there. Tyler Stevenson from the Reds, he's at 6.8 million, while the team is at 6.5, so 300K there. Graham Ashcraft from the Reds, he's filing in at 1.75, while the team is at 1.25, so 50K in between those two there. Chris Bubich from the Royals, he will file in at $6.15 million, while the Royals are sitting at 5.15. So that's $1 million difference there between Bubich and the Royals. Vinny Pasquantino and the Royals. Pasquantino filed in at 4.5, while the team filed in at 4 million, so 500 difference there. Joe Ryan from the Twins, he filed in at 6.35, while the Twins are filing at 4.85, so about 50K difference there, 500K, excuse me. And then the last one, and the big one, obviously, Tarek Skubal and the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers submitted at $19 million. Tarek Skubal submitted at $32 million. That is a gap of $13 million. That is, if I'm being honest, a massive gap. That is a huge gap. And just for the record, an arbitration contract for a pitcher, the record is, I think it was David Price, which sits at like 19.75. So either Skubal will get 19 million and not break that record, or he'll get 32 million and blow it out of the water with a $13 million gap difference here. Obviously, Skubal right now, it's his last year with the Tigers. I say potentially, but it seems likely that a long-term extension might not be possible between Skubal and the Tigers here. We've seen the Tigers produce some very great pitchers in recent years. I say recent, but I'm talking about maybe a decade ago with guys like Scherzer and Verlander. And I say produce, I don't mean produce because obviously Scherzer didn't start with the Tigers. Verlander did. But eventually these guys go away. Verlander, the more money he made, he ended up on the Astros. Scherzer went to the Nationals and Dodgers, etc., and had their whole thing there. Skubal's going to be next on the line. And if I'm being honest, the Dodgers are going to be in the mix for him at some point, whether it's via trade or whatever, depending on how the Tigers seasons go. I mean, you could see Skubal be the big name at the deadline. Will he, won't they? Like, will the Tigers trade Skubal? Will they, like, not? What kind of package could that get? That's going to be a big line for the Tigers here, who, after so many years of being irrelevant, was able to make the postseason back-to-back years. Losing Skubal now is going to be pretty costly, and, like, realistically, they should do everything they can to keep him. So I'm not saying settle at the $32 million. I'm saying use that and try to work your way into a big mega contract and get him long-term, because that's what you guys need to do. I mean, the only player, they have on the books going past 2028 is Colt Keith. And I mean, these are players with guaranteed salaries, obviously guys who are young and have arbitration. Obviously, they're still around, guys like Trey Sweeney, Dylan Dingler, Jackson Jobe, etc. But everyone else, I mean, Jack Flaherty's a free agent after this year. Gleyber Torres is a free agent after this year. Casey Mize, Jake Rogers, and Tarek Skubal, all free agents after this year. In 28, Baez is off the table there, which is good. Kyle Finnegan probably off the table there. Zach McKinstry, Will Vest, Matt Vierling. Like, this Tigers team is undergoing a lot, and a guy like Skubal is important to keep around. Just saying, but $13 million is a big gap, and this is definitely where all the eyes will be come arbitration, if they, of course, don't reach an agreement before there. Because, again, if you're not sure what arbitration is, it's one or the other. The arbitrator's not going to come in and be like, oh, well, if you pick 32 and you pick 19, we'll get it at like 26. Like, they're not going to do that. They're going to say, Skubal, $32 million, or Skubal, $19 million. And there is no in-between difference there. It's one or the other. So that will be big. Obviously, I would say Skubal's worth $32 million. Like, if I'm an arbitrator coming in, what Skubal's done is back-to-back Cy Youngs. He's way more valuable than $19 million. I think the Tigers submitted a little low. Skubal at $32 million, I think, is also very high for an arbitration. Like I said, Price had that record just under 20 mil. We have never seen a number this high for an arbitration for a pitcher, but that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve $32 million. I think a reasonable salary would have been a high 20, 27, 28. 32, maybe a little high. 19, definitely way too low. If I'm an arbitrator looking at this, I would say $32 million. And if that's the case, and the Tigers have a tough start to the season, I would definitely say Skubal's a goner. Like, that's just realistic at that point. But obviously, we'll have to wait to see. Of course, the deadline to file these arbitrations was just a couple days ago. The actual arbitration dates, I believe, happen in early February. So we'll still have to wait to see for when these meetings start to happen. But of course, as they will, we'll probably have an episode talking about it, bringing it up, and going over them, especially Skubal's, because that will be a very telltale case and his career and what ends up happening between him and the Detroit Tigers entering 2026 and beyond. Moving on here, we've just got a couple things to mention here, some recent rumors that have come out. Things I just wanted to say, just to kind of have this, 2 cents. The first one being that Ketel Marte, he was a name that was being talked around, shopped around a lot this offseason. I think some Arizona Diamondbacks fans were pretty confident that they would be entering 2026 without their face of the franchise in Ketel Marte. Recent reports have stated that is not going to be happening. Apparently, Arizona has decided to not trade Ketel Marte and will stay as a key member of this Arizona Diamondbacks team, which I think is the correct decision. Listen, if you're Arizona, you're not going to be better than the Dodgers. You can definitely have your fights with the Giants and Padres. You have a great lineup. You obviously need to work on some defense, maybe get a little bit of help pitching. But the lineup can go toe-to-toe with some of the best. They were a World Series team just 2 short years ago in 2023. not much has changed. Obviously, they did sign Corbin Burns, who did go down with a season-ending injury. He won't be around at the start of the season, but I mean, the Diamondbacks, they will have a good team, so I thought it was interesting that they even were thinking about shopping Marte. I mean, his contract's not, anything crazy high. I mean, he's been arguably the best switch hitter for, one of the best switch hitters last 3 seasons. So, I mean, he's a valuable player. They probably were getting offers for him, but nothing they loved, and obviously it's better to hold on to a player like him. So Ketel Marte, the rumors is he is staying put. The other rumor, and this kind of goes back to what we started talking about at the beginning of the episode, with Bo Bichette. It was believed that he was meeting with the Phillies. Now it is official that there apparently is a meeting between the Phillies and Bo Bichette this Monday. Which, could be the Phillies going for a big push on Bo Bichette here. It's come out that Bichette's looking for about $300 million. Of course, the length of that, $300 million is what we're not sure about. We do know teams that are in play for Bo Bichette include teams like the Dodgers, teams like the Cubs, the Blue Jays. The Yankees apparently made a big push at Bo Bichette, as well as Boston. Now the Phillies join the fray. So there are obviously plenty of suitors in for Bo Bichette. And then, where does he lie with that? So obviously that meeting will be very telltale. A Bo Bichette, Trey Turner up the middle, that would be lethal. But then again, it means what do you do with Bryson Stott, etc.? Do you move him to third? Like, there'd be questions there from the Phillies by signing Bo Bichette, but, at the end of the day, Bo Bichette is Bo Bichette. He is a pure hitter. He's got, an okay glove. I'm not going to say it's anything crazy. But, there are so many players still available. And Bo Bichette is probably one of the best pure hitters. I got to be honest, I know, it's how it works and everything. I am surprised how lengthy we're going into this offseason. With so many big names still available. By this point, usually in years, there's still a couple big names available, but some of the big names do sign. I mean, yes, we had Dylan Cease sign, but Bo Bichette, Kyle Tucker, Framber Valdez, Alex Bregman, Cody Bellinger, Zach Gallen. There are still some premier names available. I'm hoping it's a domino effect kind of style where Bo Bichette signs one day, 2 days later Tucker will sign, 4 days later Bregman will sign. It's going to be one of those things because the teams that are talking to Tucker are also talking to Bo and also talking to Bregman, and they can only get one. But the thing is, Tucker knows that because he's talking to all the same teams and Bo's talking to all the same teams. So it's someone will pull a trigger and then it's going to be okay, well, now we have to go and get this guy, right? Or go and get Bregman, go and get our starter, etc. And that's what we're waiting for. And then you trickle in those JT Realmuto. JT Realmuto was a top catcher in the league for God knows how many years. This guy's available still. Who needs a catcher? Go and sign Realmuto. Luis Arias is a hit machine. He's probably one of the best pure hitters. He's got 2 batting titles for crying out loud. Or 3 even, I forget. But this guy is phenomenal. It never strikes out. He is a guy that you should go and get. If your team's lacking some power, go get Gino Suarez. Eugenio Suarez is still available. There are still so many bullpen pieces available. Nick Martinez, Anthony Dominguez. If you need a switch hitter bat, Willie Castro is available still. You want a veteran guy, Verlander's available. Paul Goldschmidt. Tyler Anderson, Rhys Hoskins. If you want to take a shot at a couple guys, there are so many guys who are available, and you got to be wondering what are some teams doing? This is value here for a lot of players. So. The offseason will continue. Hopefully we'll get some signings over the weekend and into next week and into the rest of January because we definitely need to start clearing house here, getting ready for the 2026 season because the sooner you think about it, the quicker it's going to come up here. It's closing in here. Speaking of closing, that is going to do it for our episode here today. A nice little transition there for you guys. Yeah, the 2026 season is going to be fast approaching. Obviously, spring training still needs to happen. Obviously, the World Baseball Classic, which will be, keeping an eye on. I cannot wait to be watching that baseball. I love the World Baseball Classic, and it's really fun. You get baseball before the baseball, a little tournament there. So that's very exciting. Very excited for all of that. And I know you guys are too. I appreciate you. If you're listening to this and hearing this, I love you. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, for tuning on in, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, etc. Just means the world to me that you're watching/listening to this podcast. And it's more so listening because I don't really have a camera for the YouTube video, and it's just the other spikes. But I digress. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you everybody so much, and I will see you next time.